and I'm mindful of our time. My name is Kelly Smith, and I am the Director of Collections and Discovery in the library. Welcome to the first in our discussion series on racism, resistance, and reconciliation. For the past several months, several of us staff and faculty members from around the campus have been working together to plan this series in the hopes that we can have an open campus conversation about how racism affects us all. And I'm just going to list those partner organizations, and if there are other groups on campus that are interested in joining, please just get in touch with me and you can help us think through this as well. So here are the groups that have been working on this: African and African American Studies, the Department of History, Philosophy, and Religious Studies, the Department of Languages, Cultures, and Humanities, the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, the Office of Institutional Equity, the Student Success Center, and EKU Libraries. So you can see we have a number of groups on campus who care deeply about this issue, and we're so excited to see you all here with us today. Yesterday, Kentucky State Representative Charles Booker tweeted the following, quote, "Instead of bracing ourselves and hoping that the protests for justice die down, let's come together and deal with the racism, inequity, and corruption that require us to protest in the first place. Let's not block out the cries for healing. Let's answer them," unquote. We hope that these conversations can offer us at EKU one avenue to do exactly that. We welcome you to be a part of this conversation. For the sake of time and orderliness, if you could just please put any questions you have in the chat instead of unmuting yourself, that would be really helpful. So I would like to welcome EKU President Dr. David McFaddin and Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Dr. Dannie Moore. Thank you so much for being here with us today to open the series. And I will now turn this over to Dr. Ogechi Onwenu, Director of African and African American Studies here at EKU, who will be moderating the discussion today.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Many thanks to our special guests for participating in this timely discussion. I also thank the library and other departments for co-sponsoring this event. Today's event marks the beginning of a year-long series designed to engage the EKU community in discussing the historical movement worldwide to promote racial equality and justice for Black Americans. Never in recent memory has the global community passionately focused on the human rights of Black men and women in America. As a program dedicated to Black studies, the African American Studies at EKU believes that not only do Black lives matter, but so do Black history, Black literature, Black culture, and Black studies. Now, we live in an increasingly interconnected global society, and we believe that students, EKU students, who pursue a minor or certificate in AFA will gain not only a deeper appreciation of the complexities of racism in America, but also acquire the skills to empathize and work with people from different cultural backgrounds. So we hope that this series will strengthen diversity on the EKU campus by promoting a better understanding of the Black experience in the United States. So today we have two of the key officers at EKU as our guests, EKU President and EKU Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Thanks for honoring our invitation. And let me start by asking each of them to tell us what Black Lives Matter movement means to them personally and how it reflects in their professional and personal lives.
Dr. Anawu, if it's okay, I'll go first, and then I'll let Dr. Moore jump in and share his perspectives. I think that you touch on a couple of things that are important for us to think about as an institution. of learning. And I think the basis for this purpose of this conversation is that we root it in education, and that we root it in the fact that in order for us to reflect on where we are as a country, as a world, we have to have an appreciation for the history, for the culture, and for the experiences of everyone who comes around the table here at EKU, but really who make up the tapestry of the world that we live in today. Then I think we've got to convict ourselves to talk about, are we happy with where we are? Or are we committed to doing the work, not just having the conversations, but to doing the work that it takes to make the world a better place? And I think institutionally, I got to tell you that I'm so proud to have Dr. Moore serving as the first Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for our institution in its history. And it is, as we went through that interview process and we had a national search, we had amazing candidates who applied for the position, who wanted to come here and be a part of being the architects of EKU, leading in making the world a better place, for providing the opportunity for our students to learn how to think for themselves, how to be a part of that change, not to tell them how to think, or to tell them the things that they have to do that. And so as we go along that journey and we think about the Black Lives Matters movement, it's really about us looking inside first, us looking back on where we've been, and being committed to one another, to moving forward to a place that is better, that is more equitable, that provides inclusivity for everyone. And truly, when we think about our institution, we want it to be a family. And it matters not where we've come from. It should only matter that we're going someplace together. And so to me, I think that's the charge that is in front of us as an institution. And this is a wonderful opportunity to start what I hope is many discussions, but more importantly, the change, the work that we're going to do every day to make this institution better, and that our students, our faculty, and our staff are going to go out and make our communities and our world much better.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to first thank you for the opportunity to engage in this conversation, and I hope we're able to engage in conversation. I've had an opportunity to meet some of you and look forward to working with everyone on this call. But I want to be mindful of time and really answer the question that's in front of me. And I think for me the way I want to answer is I'm going to start by talking a little bit about me as a Black man. And so when we ask what that means personally, I think Dr. McFaddin did a great job of really talking about our commitment as an institution and what that means. But I think for me, I want to talk a little bit about personally. So a lot of you may have heard I grew up in Wisconsin, and I like to say often that there are Black people in Wisconsin. But what you may not know is I grew up in Milwaukee, and I grew up in what is considered the most incarcerated zip code in the United States. So I grew up in zip code 53206. It is 95% African American, and over 60% of the African American men in that community at some point they've been incarcerated. And so I tell you a little bit about that because I think as long as I can remember, I knew something wasn't right. I knew more people that were incarcerated that thought about college. I'm the first person in my family to even consider post-secondary education. And so I knew something wasn't right. So for me, I didn't know quite what it was, but I knew something was there and I wanted to explore. So I got to college and I was excited about this path to education. And I walk into my residence hall room and my roommate moved out. And at the time, I didn't grasp what was going on, but I knew then again, something wasn't right. So from that point on, it was like this light bulb that I needed to educate myself to educate others. And that's where this kind of commitment to doing diversity work happened. So for me, when I talk about Black Lives Matter, it's really about understanding that there's inequities that exist. and how we address those inequities. And I think a lot of times there's this quick connection that when we say Black Lives Matter, we connect to this movement that, you know, where you fall, it's either right or wrong. And I think for a lot of us, when we say Black Lives Matter, we're saying, see me, I exist, I matter. And so when I was thinking about this presentation, I wrote some notes on a piece of paper that I want to read out. In 2016, wealth for Black families was $17,600, while wealth for white families is $171,000. Black unemployment is twice as high as white unemployment. Black infants die at 2.5 times the rate of white infants. Black women are 4 times more likely to die in pregnancy. Black adults die 40% times higher from stroke, and the list continues to go on. So I think we see the news, we see what's going on, we see the incidents that make the news. But for me, when I think about Black Lives Matter, it's also these other things that we don't talk about. There's so many systematic inequities that we don't talk about. And I think through conversation, through education, that's how we can address those.
Okay, and there's no better way to make a very powerful statement about EKU's support for Black lives than the appointment of Dannie Moore as the first Vice President for Strategic Initiatives. But are there other ways EKU can emphasize Black studies, Black Lives Matter on campus in our community life? What other ways can EKU promote the idea of Black Lives Matter in our community life?
You know, Getchy, I think that, you know, we've demonstrated some of these things. I think that, you know, obviously the hiring of Dr. Moore was a meaningful and important step for me. And obviously we started down that path quickly after I became the interim, and really had very little bearing on me being the 14th president, because I knew it was something the institution needed. I knew that for our institution to thrive, for us to make sure that we are being thoughtful about our mission and truly doing the work that we profess to do as an institution of education and the school of opportunity, that was a space that we needed to do better in. As you've seen throughout the semester, really through the summer and the start of the semester, we've had the chance to engage with many of our students. We've had the chance to engage with our community and to support our community in making sure that we talk about social injustice and equity and we talk about racism, when we talk about unconscious bias. And so institutionally, there are some things that we can absolutely do. And Dr. Moore and I are working very close to bring a series of trainings and programmatic opportunities that are not going to just meet the minimum for us to understand what diversity, equity, inclusion is. They're going to set the standard for excellence and how we're going to lead in that and how we're going to embrace it and how we're going to provide those opportunities to our students, faculty, and staff. Likewise, had a chance to really have what I consider to be a very moving and a very personal experience with our football team as they were able to, on a national stage, engage in sharing their voice and being able to support them institutionally, personally, professionally, to do that, and knowing that we want to give our students that outlet, the ability to engage in having that voice and speaking what's on their heart and understanding what experiences have shaped their lives and what they want for themselves, but what they also expect of the rest of us to try to be the type of change to make where we live a place where everyone feels like they have a home. And so I think that, to really boil that down to, we've got to think about programmatically what we do. We've got to think about experientially what we do. And then we've got to think about changing the hearts and minds of each person to be thoughtful about making sure that we are living the words that we speak. And I think when it comes to this, actions speak louder than words, and we will be measured on the actions that we take.
And I would just add maybe 2 other points is we have to also identify we're not perfect. And I think for so many institutions of higher education, we like to say, well, we're doing everything right. And I think one thing that, you know, throughout this process, and again, I've only been here 2 months, but throughout this entire process, you know, when talking to President McFaddin, it was always, we have work to do, right? And I think that's what's exciting is we aren't saying we're where we want to be. We have work to do, and we are committed to doing that work. And I think the other piece of it is we need to listen to our students. You know, I've had a series of conversations with our students around what their feelings are right now, what's going on in the world, and how that's impacting them personally. And I say listen because it's not about fixing. It's about hearing and empathizing and understanding the hurt. People are hurting. I'm hurting. I mean, there's real pain around what's going on nationally. No matter where you fall politically, there's pain about what's going on nationally. So listening and empathizing and offering support to our students, I think is important. And I think that's what we're trying to do now. So that's why, you know, we are here. We understand that there's a lot going on, and we want to hear and support and do what we can to move our institution in the right direction.
Okay, thank you so much. Like you pointed out, that it is very important for us to acknowledge where we need improvement. You know, we can't be perfect. And like Dr. McFaddin mentioned, that we can advance the idea of Black Lives Matter in programmatic way, you know, by having programs that emphasize the importance of Black experience in the United States and abroad. And AFA as a department is starting the conversation of having our police studies and justice department have African studies or African American history as part of their core requirement, so that when we have our students graduate with a degree in police studies, they are grounded in a very good understanding of the African American experience in the United States, so that when they police with empathy, understanding the burdens and the responsibilities they have for the society. Now, what are the last questions I wanted to ask before I involve our students? Like Dannie Moore mentioned, that we need to listen to our students. We're going to hear from them shortly because they posed a lot of questions for two of you. But one last question I have for you is, why do you think diversity is very important to EKU? Can you tell us why you think, what are the benefits of diversity for EKU as a university?
I think Ogechi, if, you know, as I think about my own personal experience coming to Eastern as an alum, as Danny talked about his experience, I came from a predominantly white, low-income rural part of our state. I'm a first-generation college student, and when I looked around my community, everyone looked like me, everyone talked like me, everyone believed, you know, it was a very homogeneous experience. And when I arrived on campus, what I realized is the world is a much bigger place, and that those perspectives, those experiences, those people make up such a rich tapestry of the world, and they bring a breadth of understanding that can only happen when we are exposed to, and we learn to appreciate, and we learn to empathize with those who don't look like us, who may not have the same experience as us. And I just think it is so fundamental to the educational journey to be able to have that diversity in our community, to be able to bring that to our students, to bring that to our faculty, to our staff, and to understand that for Dr. Moore to come here and be a part of our institution, I'll be honest, we had conversations about what it's like to live in Richmond, Kentucky. We had conversations about what it's like to feel like that his family and his children were going to fit in this community. And what I think he wanted to hear, and the thing that I appreciated about him, was it wasn't the outward, there's the outward appearance of, oh, do I belong? But there's the inward place of, am I wanted? Am I appreciated? Are we going to be valued? And I think that is the part that we've got to make sure that our campus looks like a place where everyone belongs, but most assuredly, it has to be a place that in our heart, it is where everyone belongs. And so that is what is so critically important. But without diversity on this campus, we cannot offer our students truly everything that they need to be a global citizen and to be the change that we want them to be in their communities and in their families. And so to me, that's what that means.
I think that what I would add to that is we should, as an institution, we're preparing students to lead in the world that is diverse. I mean, I think, you know, we no matter how we want to view it, the statistics show we are becoming more diverse every day. You know, and I think it's our job to ensure our students that they're able to go out and thrive in that world, right? Like they feel comfortable and confident being engaged with people that are different, that they can go out and interact and lead and flourish in a diverse world. So I think that this is the place where it happens. You know, I joked about when I went to college. When I went to college, I was a lot different. You know, I walked into college with a do-rag on my head, some sweatpants on, and some big headphones, which we write students off if they have headphones on, and we say, you know, they're the problem. That was me as an 18-year-old. You know, I went to college with everything in 2 black trash bags, got on my parents' car and walked into a residence hall room and said, what do I do now? I had no idea what to do. And I learned through engaging. There were some faculty members there that gave me the kick that I needed. They challenged me to thrive, and they didn't let me fail. And I think that's important. I think we have to, because I think a lot of times we think about what we do is we expect people that come from different communities or with different diverse perspectives to come and then change who they are and be a part of the academy. And essentially, I think we need to change as an academy to make sure we're prepared for the students that are coming to us. We need to think about our policies, our practices, our procedures to ensure we are supporting the students and letting them be authentically who they are. I joked about me having headphones on, and now the headphones got smaller, and half the times students don't hear you talking to them, but that's who they are. And I think we have to figure out how to adapt. So I think as an institution, it's important. This is where the learning happens. This is where the growing happens. You know, David and I talked about how we can get on the phone and have a conversation about anything. And I think that's important. 2 people from 2 different spaces, 2 different, you know, he's from Kentucky, I'm from Milwaukee. We have 2 different upbringings, but we enjoy engaging in conversation. We keep saying we can't wait till COVID is over so we can sit down, grab some food and talk. And I think that's where the growing happens. You know, I say when my roommate moved out, when I moved in, he lost out because that was a chance for him to grow and for me to grow. He didn't take it. His fear of me, all he knew about me was I was from the city and he was from rural Wisconsin. So he wasn't ready for that. And I think this is the place where we need to expose people to things that are different. We need to push the comfort zone a little bit.
Okay. So diversity essentially means recognizing our differences, accepting our differences, understanding that we have something unique to bring to the table. You know, I grew up in Nigeria before I came to the United States, and many of my students will always ask me, are you not happy to be in America? And my response has always been, yes, I'm lucky to be here. I have a lot to gain from this country. I have a lot to take. But this country is also lucky to have me here because I have a lot to give. I have a lot to offer. So diversity means give and take. The recognition that I have something to give and you have something to give. And then together we will respect each other. So let us involve our students. Students have a lot of questions for our guests. So I want to turn it over to Kelly Smith to post some of the questions our students have for you.
So this first series of questions were generated in African and African American Studies classes here at EKU. And then we're trying to group like questions together, and then we're gonna pull in questions from the audience today as well. So here are the first questions from the African American Studies students. As a student athlete here at EKU, I know the football team has given out statements about diversity and racial injustice. That statement was a very well thought out message about the hard time America is having right now, fighting for racial profiling, racial injustice, and discrimination. Do you support a peaceful march through campus for racial injustice with participants following COVID-19 guidelines?
I'm going to assume that question is for me. Absolutely. I think that I had the chance to participate in a march here in Richmond back in the summer, had a chance to be with the mayor. We are fortunate in this community to have Reverend Robert Blythe as our mayor. He is such a strong advocate for our institution, for really change in a way that is going to make our community better. He's lived through now what considered two significant civil rights movements in our nation's history during his life, and he was a student during the first, and now he serves as the mayor during the second. Absolutely, I think that given the environment we're in with COVID-19, if we can make sure we can do things in the safest way possible, we want to facilitate any opportunity we can for our students, our faculty, our staff, and our community to engage and be able to express themselves in that way. And so anything that our office can do to support that, we stand ready to do so.
And the next question is, given the current state of the country when it comes to racial injustice, what changes, if any, has EKU established to ensure that minority students do not experience racial injustice while on campus?
Well, let me start with, we have always prided ourselves on a campus where we protect our students, we protect our faculty, we protect our staff. And so when we think about those additional measures, I want people to understand that is of paramount importance every day in the seat that I sit in. The safety of our students, faculty, and staff, whether it's related to COVID-19, whether it comes to social injustice, whether it comes to any type of physical harm that would come to them in some other way. We are invested in making sure that this is the safest place possible. Now, I understand that some of that harm and some of those things can come not in a physical way, that those can come in emotional and mental ways, and ways that we don't see. And so as we think about our counseling center, and as we think about our student services, we are here and we are prepared to support you, to listen to you. And I think Dr. Moore hit earlier, sometimes just listening, having a place that you can go and talk about the things that you're feeling and the things that you're experiencing are important. But I also want you to know that whether it's through our office for our Title IX office, or whether it's through Dr. Moore's office, or whether it's through public safety, if anyone feels as though that they are not safe or that they're being treated in a way that is unfair or unjust, there is a way for them to raise their hand, for them to, whether it be confidential or otherwise, and for us as an institution to make sure we're providing an environment that is healthy and as safe as possible.
I also think we are committed to taking a look in the mirror. I mean, we are, and I think one thing about, EKU that really was exciting for me is the team is in place. I mean, I really feel that the commitment is there. So when we are talking about policies at the highest level, we're making sure they're equitable. When we're talking about our departments, when we're thinking about anything at the highest level, we're taking a look in the mirror to make sure we're creating spaces where students can feel connected, they feel like they belong, and that lens is there. So when we are if we're having a discussion, we're thinking about all of our students, even the students at the margin. So we make sure as we make decisions, we aren't making decisions in a vacuum where we're isolating students.
Also, Kelly Smith, we also have associations on campus that create such spaces for students of all races to come together. We have the African Student Association, and the advisor, Ida Otiano, has done a good job of bringing students of all races, so many students who come from Africa, and they feel a little bit alienated. Such an organization provides them the opportunity to have a home, and then Caucasian students, Asian students, they get involved in the association and have diversity events that connects them and give them an opportunity to express themselves in a very loving and welcoming campus.
So much, and we can, we can start a list on the webpage that we've created for this for resources for students, and we'll do that after this. Okay, the next question is, what can EKU do to amplify the voices of our diverse students, so that they are heard not only across campus, but across all of Richmond and even Kentucky?
I think we've touched on a few things. Listen, learn, love, empower. I think that creating an environment where our students feel like they have a voice, that they have the support of our campus, of our community. It's going to give them the strength to go out and make that difference that we want them to make, whether it's here in Richmond or wherever they call home, or wherever they find themselves professionally beyond that. And so I think that that's the mantra for us is to we've got to learn and grow. And Danny talked a little bit earlier. We're all on a journey to a destination. And I think that the ultimate destination being a place where we have cultural competence and equity and inclusivity in our community and in our workplace, in the educational space. But that journey to get there is going to be different for everyone. And so we've got to make sure that we're lifting each other up and giving and extending a helping hand along that journey for everyone who's traveling on it with us. So,
and I also think supporting student organizations that are trying to move things forward. I think that's important. I had a conversation with the SGA president, and we talked about some initiatives that that SGA wants to move forward, and how could I partner? How could I serve as a sponsor? I had a conversation with some members of NPAC on how I can support some things they want to do. So I think it's also important that, we were students at one point. So how can we do a better job of supporting some of the student initiatives they have in place? One student said, just show up, come to our event sometimes, come listen to what we have to say. Don't just write us off. So I think it's about how can we support some of the things that the students have to do and help put them in places where they can be successful. So you talked about moving things out to Richmond. How do we use our connection to the mayor of Richmond to highlight a student organization? Or, we have, students that want to do certain things. How can we work within our capacity as institutions to support those students? I think that's where we can come in and help out.
And I'd like to take the opportunity to mention one other thing that students can do if you want to be heard beyond the confines of campus. That there are opportunities through your schoolwork to do research projects related to this. We have, there's an undergraduate research journal for Kentucky, and you can submit to that. There's the posters at the Capitol if you want to do a project related to race on campus or anything that interests you like that. That's a good way to get out, your thoughts about these issues. Okay. What are you doing to bring Black students closer to white students on campus to end racial tension? For example, are you pursuing any policy changes to bring about racial understanding on campus?
So I think from a policy standpoint, I think that we probably should focus a little more on the experience. I'm not sure that we can legislate that type of behavior, but what we can do is we can make it a core part of the Eastern experience. We can make it a core part of the educational journey, and then we can also wrap that around with it being part of the student experience. And so that is one thing that Danny and I have talked a lot about in his position, is trying to bring those opportunities to the forefront where we have those consequential conversations, where we have those opportunities for personal growth and for bringing those who were far apart closer together with a better, more intimate understanding of each other. And so I may let him talk a little bit about programmatically and organizationally some of the things that he's doing to start us down that process together.
Definitely. So there's a couple of things that are already in the works. And some of you have already heard, we've hired, we have one position posted. We also hired Dr. Roger Cleveland to come back and lead our faculty staff diversity and development. So he actually started last week. And in his role, he's really looking at how we can do a better job of recruiting, retaining, and working with the curriculum. So he's a part of my leadership team, but also working with the provost to engage with what's happening in the curriculum. I think another thing that we've started discussions on is how can we utilize the orientation experience. And I've had a couple of conversations with the team in enrollment management to talk about, my desire to really start having this uncomfortable conversation as a part of orientation. I think it needs to start as students are transitioning to our campus so they can see that this is important to us. And orientation has been very receptive. You know, we're still trying to identify what best format. So we're thinking about piloting something for this spring orientation in a virtual format that we can hopefully roll out in the fall, and hopefully in face-to-face, but if not, still in a virtual format. We are also looking at how we can expand our training offerings. So we are in a process of hiring another member of my team that will lead in looking at how the educational space, like how we offer in-depth training that not just is a one-off, that really moves the agenda forward. So hopefully that position will be in place and start working here in the fall. There's also been some structural changes that add a little bit more support to what's currently our OMSA office by bringing in, by moving some staff members around to kind of create a full staffing structure in there. So things are already starting to kind of move in that direction. But I agree. I think engaging these conversations is very important.
And I think, you know, Dr. Moore touched on this, but Dr. Cleveland will be a member of the Provost Council as we go through our general education redesign process over the next year or so. Thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion will be a pillar of that redesign. It'll also be a key attribute as we go through our institutional comprehensive strategic plan process throughout the next 18 months.
Thank you so much. Okay, now I'm going to ask a few questions that have come in on the chat. So the first one is, it's a two-part question. What do we gain or lose when race is invisible? What do we gain or lose when race is hyper-visible? It's a tough question.
Yeah, well, I think that the question really speaks to a lot of kind of where we started with the Black Lives Matters movement and the understanding that you know, there's this concept of we don't want to see color, because if we see color, then we're really, you know, putting people into different spaces. But at the same time, we do want to see that vibrant difference that is. And so I think it's a balanced approach here. I think it is understanding that we all have our individual journey and our individual set of experiences and the things that make us us. And those things are on the inside and those things are on the outside, and they're shaped by every experience that we have. At the same time, I think that this very basic understanding of the value of human life and the value of each other as a person, and knowing that everyone brings that value forward, and that we should appreciate and have an understanding for that value of each other. And so I don't think you can have one without the other. I think until we are in a world where we have a fully inclusive and equitable world where everyone has the same opportunity from day one to day, to day, whatever the last day of their life is, until that happens, then we are going to have to be cognizant of the fact that we've got to provide equity and opportunity and inclusivity and equality to assure that, because I think that is what foundationally, if we think about our country, that's what we should be about. That should be that no matter where you start, everyone can get to the same place as far as what they want in their life, and that where they come from, who they are, should not shape those things or be a detriment to them having that success.
And I would add, I think it's important for us to break down the stigma that diversity is bad. I mean, diversity is great, right? Like I am who I am, and I am happy. Like I'm happy with who I am. I'm not trying to change who I am. And I think we have to get to a point where we appreciate people authentically being who they are. And I think, and I'm happy that we continue to use the word appreciate, because I think a lot of times we accept diversity. Like we accept having those people over there come to our institution. I think we have to get past that. You have to appreciate me for who I am. I will not change who I am. I can't change who I am. So I want to move past we accept X to we appreciate the experiences that you bring to our campus. We appreciate who you are. We are engaging with who you are, and we don't want to change you, but we want you here. We want, you know, I have a daughter that's a high school senior. So we've been on this journey of looking at colleges and starting that whole journey. And if you've been there before, you know it is a stressful time. It is very stressful. And all we've been doing is we've been engaging in conversations about, do you feel like you'll be valued on that campus? Do you feel like they will appreciate you for who you are? And I think that's where we have to get. We have to get past this. We accept diversity on our campus too. We appreciate it. We celebrate your culture. Like that is paramount to who we are. And I think that's what's exciting for me, is that I can play a part in moving us to that journey where we truly appreciate diversity on our campus. Like it's not this one-off, it's not this other thing. It's core to who we are as a campus.
Okay, here is another question from the chat. With the most important election coming up, what steps will you all take to ensure the safety of all people of color and LGBTQ+ community if the election takes a dark turn?
Well, institutionally, I think I talked a little bit about this earlier. Our institution will be a safe haven for our students, our faculty, our staff. We will take all steps necessary to make sure that if someone feels vulnerable, if someone feels threatened, if someone feels like in some way that they don't feel like that they can freely move about and have an experience here, irregardless of what's going on in the world around us, then we're going to put the resources that are necessary around it to make sure that happens. But I think that institutionally we have done that, and we will continue to do that. And obviously we'll work very closely with all of the members of the cabinet to make sure that those resources are in place. But we also will be here to listen and to support and to understand that you know, there's going to be a lot of feelings. There's going to be a lot to talk about as it relates to our community and to our nation. So,
and I would echo that. I think we're going to be here to listen. I think the president hit on it now. I think it's going to take conversations. It's going to take some engagement, and I think that's what we're here for. I mean, I think this is an opportunity for us to use our educational mission to engage in conversation with students. Because I do, you know, it was 4 years ago. It was a difficult time on college campuses. I went through that. We saw the postings, we saw and now so much of it's going to be virtual. But I think for us, it's engaging in dialogue with our students and making sure they feel supported here.
Dr. Moore, the next question is a little bit of a follow-up on what you mentioned in terms of using college as the experience to get out of your comfort zone. And so the question was, how can EKU get out of their comfort zone to grow?
I'm still learning, right? Like I think I'm gonna say I've been here for 2 months, and I've been meeting with, I've been in meetings, I think every day for 2 months, learning more about EKU. So I think for me to effectively answer that, I'm gonna need a little bit more time. But I think we have the people in place. I don't think people want to be comfortable, right? Like I think EKU, I think everyone's primed for us to continue to move in the right direction. I think it's like everyone's waiting for someone to say go. And I think what I'm trying to do is tell people to go. And I think part of that is looking at, the president talked about the strategic plan and how are we going to embed our diversity goals into that plan. And so I met with Dr. Weiss to talk about that yesterday, talking about CP's requirement for the diversity plan. How can we create strategies and initiatives that move us in a direction? So I think some of those structural things will happen. Like we are already moving in that direction, where structurally the things that need to happen are happening. But I think also it's, and I worked at a different institution, and people said, well, I have all these ideas, but I won't do it because I don't want to get reprimanded, or this is going to happen if I try to do this diversity program. And so it's telling people it's okay to try things. Let's have some conversations and see if things work. And my hope is that I keep an open door where I am a place where if you have ideas you want to talk through. I had a conversation with a dean who started a new initiative. She's like, I want to just bounce this idea off you. Or, you know, I've met with the honors. They're like, I want to bounce this idea off you. And I think that's part of this space is hopefully you can use me to help you move what you want to do, because it's not going to happen with one person. Like, one person can't be the end all be all for diversity. It has to, you know, my job is to really embed it into the fabric that it's everybody's job. We all have responsibilities to our faculty, our staff, and our students. And I think from the president down, we're moving us in that direction to where people feel comfortable starting to do what's right. And I'm starting to see that already. And I've only been here 2 months.
Yeah, Kelly, I might add to that. It's also not going to happen without it happening on purpose. You know, that it's got to happen by design. It will not happen by default. And so, you know, it's not, it was very strategic that Dr. Moore's office is right in the center of campus, that he is very visible. When he talks about his door being open, literally it is open, and he is right there in the center of campus where, you know, we see so much traffic of our students and our faculty and our staff through that part of campus. And so it will not happen by accident. It has to be intentional.
Okay, so this next question might be a good one for Ogechi to answer, actually. Are there general education classes in regards to racial equity, racism, disproportionality, prejudice, and discrimination?
Okay. Almost all our courses, you know, focus on history, Black experience, not just in Africa, but also globally. So whatever classes you take, whether the African experience, AFA 201, the African American experience, AFA 202, and also some upper division courses that specifically focus on marginalized groups, like women, like decolonization in Africa. So our catalog is rich with courses that will provide you with the understanding of the history of racism, history of resistance to racism, and also progress that has been made, because that is what we do in AFA. We look at the problems, we look at the progress, and we also look at the promise, the possibilities of racial reconciliation.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I haven't seen any new questions come in from the chat, so I'm gonna go back to a few more questions from the AFA classes. What are your plans to celebrate and promote diversity of students and faculty throughout campus while staying within COVID guidelines?
Dr. Moore, you want to talk about some of our programmatic things we're working on?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job of pivoting to virtual, and I think it's things like this. I think, you know, we are following the COVID guidelines and we are engaged in conversations. You know, we have looked at how we could make some shifts to some of the offerings in UMSA. You know, I think, you know, there's a robust calendar of events for Latino Heritage Month. So I think we've figured out how to navigate that space virtually. We're still trying to get the right mix of what we need to do, so we're not, you know, and I think, you know, a lot of people are asking, well, you know, what are you going to offer your office? So I'm still right now trying to see what everyone else is doing and figure out where the gaps are. So assessing where we need to make tweaks. But I think that, you know, we've learned how to pivot to a virtual space, and we're gonna continue to do that until we are able to have a conversation like this in a face-to-face environment.
Okay, the next one we've touched on a little bit throughout this, but I'm just going to read it one more time to see if there's anything we've forgotten about. So what resources are available to educate us about diversity and keep us updated on current issues? If you all can think of any that we haven't mentioned.
I think we've touched on a lot of them. I think that some of the student services I mentioned the counseling center a little earlier. I think that there's some student services out there that are key. I think as Dr. Moore is starting to bring his team together with Dr. Cleveland, with his director of training, we're going to start to be able to build a repository of resources, of trainings, of putting together lecture series, of recruiting in folks from who are being doing this type of work, being successful in industry. I think there's going to be a lot of those things that we've seen that come to fruition. But I never want to lose sight of kind of the fact that if a student feels like that, whatever it may be that they're struggling with, whether it's racial injustice, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's housing insecurity, know that we are here institutionally, and Kelly, if you guys kind of list some of those resources there, I think that the most important thing is what I hope and what I expect from our campus is that no matter who you come to and raise your hand and say, I need help, that person is going to do their level best to connect you with someone who can help you. I get things that come to the president's office all the time, and I will tell you, I'll be the first to say, I may not be the best person to help you, but I assure you, I will get you to the person who can. And so that's the culture that we need on this campus of extending that helping hand and really lifting others up.
And I'm working with Dannie Moore, and once the website rollover happens, we're going to actually create the website. But one thing that I've been doing over the last few months is actually created a resource, like a reading list of different articles, different podcasts, different videos that will be posted as a kind of almost like an anti-racism reading list. So if there's things you want to read, and I know a lot of institutions have done that, created a space where you can just go and click a link and read an article. So we're still I'm going to kind of work through that to be able to offer that as well.
And also, AFA published an open access textbook that will also serve as a very valuable scholarly resources for our students. Instead of relying on stereotypes or myths in understanding the African American experience, that open access textbook, which is available on EKU website, library website, free of charge, will provide the students enough foundation to appreciate the history of Black experience in the United States. And we're very grateful that the president was there during the launch, which gave it the credibility and support that it needed.
A really interesting question just came in, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. If we are to experience racism or discrimination on campus, where do we report that to?
There's a couple of places. First, I think the Title IX office is a place to start with that, and we can get the contacts for that office out. We also have an ethics point submission line. So if you have it's confidential. It goes to a confidential repository, and then it will be sent out and investigated. If this is a student issue, I would always encourage engaging with the Dean of Students and engaging with our Student Affairs team. Also engage with Dr. Moore and his team. That's going to be a logical place to go, and he's going to be able to connect. His team are going to be able to connect you through to the right place to be, so that we can handle that in the most appropriate way. And so I think there are a multitude of outlets. I would say this is, as we talk about these issues on campus, I hope that it allows us to start building deep, meaningful relationships with one another, where individuals will feel comfortable to talk about those things. I do know that there's some things that we are working on, and Dr. Moore and I have talked about it, about unconscious bias and some of those types of things, where we can start to build processes and protocols that help to start pushing some of those things out of the experience, particularly as it pertains to assessment. So.
Great. Okay, so I think I'm going to ask one more question and then close it out. What are our next steps at EKU?
I'll start that one. I think our next step is we're in the middle of really two big things. So we are looking at creating my division. So we talked about Dr. Cleveland being here. We talked about some shifts to UMSA. We talked about this kind of training position. And so as we do that, we're developing an educational plan. So whether it's training, whether it's workshops, so that's one piece. And then we're also looking at the CPE strategies that we have in place. So, and I think I want to go back to that because that's really a foundation for our campus and how we address strategies as they pertain to our diverse student community. So looking at that and making revisions, making corrections, looking at creating a little bit of a different plan that really takes us to tie into what we're doing with the strategic plan. So I think that's the next piece. And I think it's engaging in conversations like this. I think it's important that we all get together and we talk. I think it helps us all grow. And I think so looking at, I know this series is I believe a monthly series. So continue to try to get more people to these conversations.
Dr. McFaddin, did you have anything to add?
I think that Dr. Moore hit the nail on the head. Right now, I'm focused on building an infrastructure that will support success in this space. And so, as we hired Dr. Moore and we brought him in, I told him, "Hey, you are great. You really are, but you don't have the superpowers. It can't be one person." And I think that probably where we have failed institutionally in this space in the past is it's been on one person. It's the chief diversity and equity officer. That it's on them to write the plan. It's on them to submit the plan. It's on them to try to engage with stakeholders across campus to get them to implement the plan that they didn't have a part of writing the plan in the first place. And so I think building that infrastructure is really step one, to build a team in and around Dr. Moore in the core area that he's going to lead, but understand that responsibility is going to trickle out to all of us. And so we're all going to be involved in that work every day. But it is his job to lead it from the position he sits in. And I will tell you that I will not in any way shy away from it being ultimately my responsibility to support, to be visionary in that space, and to be unapologetic about what we're going to do institutionally to lead in that space. And so I'm just very thankful to have him, standing shoulder to shoulder to do that work together, but also to have all of you on here who have expressed, and so many of you I know do this diligent work every day. And so, please make sure as this structure evolves, I know Danny's going to want this. We want to make sure that you're plugging in where you want to be. And where you feel like that you can bring the most value and the most insight and the most perspective. And so we're very much looking forward to that. I will also say that in this new organizational structure that I've rolled out with our president's cabinet, our president's leadership council, and then our council for institutional excellence and innovation, we're going to bring a lot more voices around the table. And I will assure you that in each of those settings, we are going to have the chance to talk about and to act on things that are going to help us be excellent in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Dr. Anwanru, is there anything you want to add?
Oh, okay. I want to thank them for participating and starting this conversation. And we're going to continue the conversation on a monthly basis. Next month, we intend to bring current Black students or former Black students to share their experience of studying here at EKU while being Black. And I think that exchange will help them to understand what they can do to leave a legacy here on campus, to make a difference in the life of this community. And I think in November, we will also have a panel discussion comprising of AFL faculty to discuss Black experience in America and then compare it with the Black experience in Africa. And many students don't really realize that colonialism was an expression of white supremacy. So we're going to look at colonial rule in Africa, look at the effort to resist it, and the experience of Black people during the colonial period, and then compare it with the experience of Black people here in America to provide a much more international view of the Black experience. And then next year, February and March, we're also discussing other, we're we're going to have. So we invite the university community to join us in this very important conversation.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.